Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of In the Vine Connects with your host, Melissa Chavez. And yet again, we have an entire new guest panel and an entire new, well, I guess no, we did the same venue last time, but nonetheless. So here with us today, I have all the way from South Africa just for this moment. I may or may not be embellishing a little bit, but here with us today we have Rion.
That is close. Yeah. So
Yes.
thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Rion, and my last name is Delanga. And I am all the way from South Africa.
How are you feeling being here in the United States?
Good.
Yeah?
Good as always.
Good.
Yeah, great to be back. Thank you.
Of course. And then we have the myth, the man, the legend.
That was a little out of order, but
I know. I can take it back. I can scratch
Miguel,
it.
Mike, Dusko, Jr. I got millions of names, but that guy that's in the back there from Sun Valley,
Sun Valley.
Lancaster, Palmdale.
You're representing out here?
I'm
Okay.
representing.
Good.
All right. And then we have, I won't say the name. I'll let you introduce however you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Todd Brewer, originally from the East Coast, New Jersey. Now a Californian for many, many, many years. You can call me Todd the Bod.
I like it. I like it. And of course, we have back with us.
Yeah, Jose Rodriguez, all the way from TJ, Tijuana. That's where I was born, but they don't want me, and the United States doesn't want me. But I'm here.
All right. Once again, cut. Just kidding. Go ahead.
My name is Andre, and I love the desert.
Right. Okay.
Is that dessert or desert?
Desert, one S.
Okay, good.
Desert.
I just said both, but yeah, and I'm Rob Enos. I'm the lead apostle here at the church that we're filming in, and that's about it.
All right. So I didn't know that we were going to be representing where we're from today. So that's a new one. That's a new one.
I didn't want Rihanna to feel left out.
Right.
So,
Okay.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So I definitely don't know where we're going to go with this episode. So you guys just hang on, strap yourself in, because it's going to be a wild ride for you this time. We have a lot of different personalities and a lot of really good takes. But I think, no, let me just get into it. Okay. So the topic for this episode is being a provider and a protector for families, for their families, right? Each and every one of these men are married. They have their families. And so I just wanted to pick their brain because I feel like there's a generation out there that is either reluctant to have a family or they don't know how to navigate and be that person to step into that role of fatherhood or even husband. So with that being said, we're going to dive into this topic and with these questions. Now, I have the questions, so I know that all of you guys have great input. So I'm going to, initially, I'm going to call out the first person, and if anybody wants to add, you can go ahead and add. Does that sound good?
yes.
Good, perfect. So I'm just going to, let's see. Okay, so something that the girls and I talk about often is in today's social climate, there's like a reluctancy for men to step into the area of commitment because a lot of them say, oh, you know, I can't afford it, or it's too much, or whatever the case may be. And so speaking to that, what do you guys have to say about this? I'll start with the one that has been recently married, just started out, I think. Drizzy, how long have you and Yessie been married?
So, yeah, it's been 4 years. We just had our 4-year anniversary this past September the 19th that we got married during COVID.
Congratulations. That's awesome. On the anniversary, not getting married during COVID.
Correct, yeah.
Yes.
But thank you.
Yes.
4 years later, congrats, yeah.
Yeah.
So what I have to say about it, just speaking from my personal life, I don't think the fear of commitment was there for me, but it was more of getting things in the right order so I can take that next step. And one thing that I've noticed is God's faithfulness has always been there.
That's good.
For example, the amount I was making and then not being able to buy a home before I got married until proposed, and then right after got into escrow, got promoted almost year after year and seen an incremental increase, like a substantial increase, all because I was willing to take that step.
That's good.
And I guess some men overthink it. A lot of times the main battles between our 2 ears is really overthinking it and, okay, what if I don't make enough? What if I can't get this? What if I don't propose on time? And that way you really psych yourself out. And I feel like if you take that step, just like Peter stepped out on water, he fell in the story, but Jesus is going to help you up. His faithfulness transcends our limitations or our weaknesses or failures, so to speak. So just on a high level, that's how I've noticed it for me, and his provision has been insane. Even like I mentioned, getting married, getting promoted right after. We had Zariah. I took the full 8 weeks leave, and then I got promoted again right after that.
It's amazing.
And so sometimes, naturally, oh man, I'm about to have a baby. How am I going to make it? Expenses are going to go up, and God comes through. I mean, you have to be faithful also, right? You have to be obedient to see that fruit. But I think just touching on that a little bit without going into too much detail, get out of your head, make it happen, apply scripture. I'm really big on practical application of scripture, right? You don't have to get into like the deep Hebraic studies and all that to really see this fruit or the faithfulness of God.
Sure.
But as long as you take the word, you apply it, he's going to meet you right there, and you're going to see God's provision, and it's one of the most beautiful things. So highly encourage all the young men out there that are wanting to get married. Don't let fear take you out. It's so much beautiful on the other side of it. And going back to, being married 4 years, Zariah's 2 years old now, our beautiful daughter, and I tell my wife all the time, I never thought about this growing up, but I wouldn't change it at all. I love where I'm at, just turning 33, having a family, and another baby on the way. It's the most incredible thing, and I'm so glad that those fears that could have came up didn't keep me from this. It's so worth it.
Yeah, that's really good. Do any of you want to add something to that?
Yeah, so speaking from somebody who's been married for much longer than that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Probably 40, 41 years.
Wow.
I'm going to say that feeling of fear, I think is prevalent, before you take a big step. Obviously, marriage is a huge deal. So I don't think it's an uncommon thing to happen. But again, my first thoughts when I read the question, which you just kind of have to man up to it, which I think Andre kind of said that in more words, but you can't let your fears overcome you. We all at the beginning stages probably feel financially strapped and worried about taking on that responsibility of a wife and eventually children. But again, we have to rebuke the spirit of fear, and we have to trust. And I think you just have to take that step. You can't let that overwhelm you, because you'll never probably feel like you're going to be perfectly ready to make that step. You're not going to have enough money in the bank and stuff like that. We, my wife and I, before we, decided to purchase a home, for example, that was a big step. We made some tough decisions to financially prepare for that. But, if you continue to trust in the Lord, He will provide, and you just have to put your foot out there, like Andre said, get out of the boat.
Yeah, that's really good. I know all of you want something to say for this, right? Anybody else? Rion, you got to come in. Come on.
Yeah, I'm not so sure if I'm the correct guy to speak on that, but as far as let me show on the financial part, because I think Todd just touched on that. First of all, you will never have the money if you're going to marry. Before you get married, there ain't going to be enough money. And before you get a kid, there's also not going to be enough money. Before you buy the next car, there's not going to be enough money. When you're going to go for the house, there's not going to be enough money. So if you stare blindly at, I need this X amount of money before I can commit, it's never going to happen. That idealism, it's almost like a religion in our minds, the ideal state of what we want to have. It's just not true.
That's good.
So both, again, I have to agree with what they said. My situation was a little different in the sense that obviously I'm a pastor and I'm a full-time pastor. So I kind of like run everything on what I feel God is saying. And when God says go this way and pull the trigger for something, the money follows.
That's good.
And it's the same with the wife. After I got married, then we got a house. We didn't have a house before,
Yeah.
And a few years after we got married, then the children came in the right order, thank God.
That's good.
So as long as you have the fear of money, you're not gonna have anything. You won't have shoes or cars or nothing. You gotta overcome the fear.
That's really good. And what you said reminds me, right, of Psalm 23. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me.
Sure.
And it's not the other way around. So if you're seeking to follow those things, then again, it comes out of the wrong order. And so you're already starting off with the wrong foot, right? And so constantly you're going to be in this battle of like, will I have enough? Like down to trips. But I know that A-Rob, you and P-Lin have amazing testimonies of how the Lord provided supernaturally where you guys struggled as far as like trips or cars, groceries. And so tell us about that.
Okay, kind of back to the original part about young people, especially young men getting married. Even statistically, what they're finding, they used to tell you, wait until you have all your ducks in a row, then get married, it'll be healthier. It's not true. Because when you're younger, you're more moldable and shapeable. When you go through struggles, it brings the two together more.
Absolutely.
And they shape one another through those struggles. You wait till you're a little bit later in life and you're already set.
Yeah.
It's like trying to mix two solid concrete blocks and making it work. It's harder because both are set in their ways already. And you don't want to be there when you start. So we got married and it wasn't anything on us. We just... Well, you know that passage that says if you're going to burn, get married? That's why we got married. We got married young. And we thought we were way too young after we started facing these struggles. But now we realize, no, that's what God wanted for us because we mixed together through those struggles and being young. I was still moldable, shapeable. So was she. Now we mold and shape together.
Yeah.
And so... Again, there's never, ever enough money, no matter what you want. You know, it's not there. You just jump in and you just do it. You have to have faith in God.
Yeah.
And God's met us. I mean, our first house, complete and total miracle. We bought a house, signed all the papers and bought a house before we even saw the house.
What?
Yeah. But it was God did it in such a wild way at a auction of all things. We never saw the house. We kind of knew the neighborhood, but not the house. And we just went for it because it was such a great price. But when people, they thought we were crazy because we didn't see the house before we even bought it. But when they realized how much we paid for it, then they said, oh, it doesn't matter what it looked like.
Yeah.
You had such a great deal. You can turn around and flip it and make a lot of money and go buy the house you really wanted, which we ended up doing even though we lived there for 10 years. But it was that type of thing. Trips. We've been given trips where all we had to do is get to the airport or to the port, and we had these trips. If they weren't free, they were next to free, and many of them were free. All kinds of different places. Yeah. We were broke. Our bank account would say zero, but here we are on this luxury trip because God just opened the door. Yeah. The point I'm trying to say is taking risks and being obedient to the Lord puts God in a place where he can really move in you. If we're too cautious, trying to get everything in order, well, it's all on us. Yeah. But if we feel like God's pulling us a certain way, jump in, take a risk, because now it's on the Lord to provide for the risk he put us into. Yeah. You know, and he always comes through. He always makes it work, even when we can't figure it out. Like that first house I was telling you about, there was absolutely no way we could get into a house normally. Yeah. Supernaturally, God just provided us a house that we purchased, we bought. Yeah. And when we sold it, we made a ton of money. It was all God.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So a couple things on that. So you had mentioned if two people are, they like each other, they love each other, better get married than to burn. Okay. So we get what you're alluding to there. And I think one of the first things that I'm gonna speak to men because I don't understand the female brain to that extent to speak on it, right?
I don't think any of us do.
But I think it's important to understand, okay, God created man and woman, and he created woman to complement man, right? Yeah. So by nature, our natural wiring is designed to be in pairs. Yeah. So I think the first step is to understand, okay, my natural design is to be with a woman, is to have a partner for life. So once you understand your natural wiring, it's kind of hard to go against that. So because I've been on the other side, I was very committed to being not committed to a female early on in my life, and now that I am committed, I'm super committed. But it's because I realized, there's kind of that shift of like, okay, I got to grow up. I got to get this right. There's a certain lifestyle I want, and it only happens when I, take this path.
Yeah.
So I think that's step one, is understanding your natural wiring and stop trying to fight it.
That's good.
That's the first thing. The second thing about like, okay, I don't have enough money, or I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Okay. So, there's various examples you can look at. When the pressure is there, or when the real desire is there to succeed, you're going to figure out how to make it happen. Perfect example, if I take anyone, you drop them in, Alaska, and all they have is just a tank top and some shorts. When the snow comes around, you may not know anything before time, how to make clothing or shoes or whatever, but I can guarantee you once that snow starts coming, you're going to figure out how to knit together, leaves or whatever you got to do to stay warm, because you're in a fight to survive.
Right.
The need is there.
Yeah.
So when you get, going into it, you may not know, but once you're married and you realize the responsibilities of being a husband and being a father, you have that drive to figure it out. You're going to push yourself further than when you were by yourself, because now you have something to provide for.
Yeah.
You have a family that you got to, you want to see them successful. Any true man is going to want their family to succeed. They want their family to be happy.
Yeah.
I strive to give my kids and my wife like a lifestyle that I never had, or a better lifestyle than I can have. And to this point, I'm envious of their lifestyle, and that's a good thing. I'm like, man, I wish I had your life, like, but I'm able to provide that, and that's such a rewarding feeling. It's amazing. So it's just that maturity, you gotta just wake up and be a man, like realize, okay, this is how you're designed. And when the pressure is there, you're gonna find ways to make it happen.
Yeah.
You're gonna find ways to get a house. I got my house. I found ways to get a raise. And I'm where I'm at because I found ways to make it happen. When your why is big enough, the how will manifest
That's
itself.
so good. Yeah.
You just gotta realize this why is worth.
Yeah. It made me think of one of the things that we always talk about in the podcast is knowing your why, which it's fitting that you say that because it's your wife that says that constantly. And so with that, I'm reminded of something that you said in one of the episodes that we just filmed, where it's the inheritance, right? And so inheritance equals legacy. And so when you're thinking about marriage, when you're thinking about these relationships, it goes further than the initial ceremony, but it's the covenant and what that does for your lineage, right? And so Jose, like when you got into your marriage with Jackie and all these things, I mean, you guys shared your testimony in on your individual interviews, but what do you have to say about that, about legacy, about inheritance and all that good stuff when it comes to marriage? Because I feel like when you have that correct picture, you understand why it's worth it to get into that marriage covenant, right?
Yeah. Well, before that, it wasn't easy. It didn't come naturally, right?
Right.
Even though we're designed for it to come naturally, but no, because obviously we have our own traumas, we have our own struggles, and getting married doesn't make it go away.
Yeah.
If you don't work towards it, that's why it's a good thing to work on yourself before you get married, right? Because you want to be the best version of yourself for your spouse, and you want to receive the same thing.
Yeah.
Vice versa. And it wasn't easy because I didn't have that example of what a biblical marriage or godly marriage was. I didn't have that. And then the people I hung around with, like they disrespected their wives. They ignored their kids. So that was normal to me, and that was normal in our culture in that time, and even today. I say that today.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a norm. So for me to commit was an issue because it wasn't normal for me.
Yeah.
Now on this side, being on this side, I know I'm going beyond the question,
No,
but
it's fine.
being on this side now, I'm able to see, I had commitment issues, but because of what I was around. And so in order to step away from that, I had to remove myself from all that.
Yeah.
From who I hung out with, what the norm was for me, right?
Yeah.
If I want to do it God's way, then I have to do it God's way, right?
Yes.
So it's different. It's different than what the world looks like. So in doing that and going to buying the house and everything, like we didn't have the money to buy, a house. We rented my parents' garage, but yet we kept our distance until we were ready to. And even we were never ready. Like Jackie would say her fear was that we get a house and then we can't afford it, right? What's going to happen then? And me, it was like, oh, let's just go for it, But we were in a place where we were able to. We weren't able to get like an extravagant home.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing about being together is like you work towards it, right? You make it happen. So you made that house. Jackie and I made it into a home.
Yeah.
Right? To fit what we wanted to according to our desires, right? For the time. Going back to your question as far as legacy, Now, fast forward, right? Fast forward all these years, we know what we've been given is not just for us, right? We're out to leave something behind, right?
Yeah.
And the call is to, yes, to make disciples of all nations, right? Baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Correct.
Right? That's our mandate. That's a command to do that. How do we fit that in our lives and our in our legacy moving forward, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things we're doing now, specifically with us, is in fostering. Like my wife and I, we foster, right?
Yeah.
And we see that though they're not our biological children, they're still part of our legacy, right?
Yes, absolutely.
They're adopted into our family. We're their spiritual parents, but we're also reaching the nations, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not just one ethnicity that we're bringing in.
Yeah.
We're open to everybody, right?
Yeah.
And in all that, that's us preaching the gospel to all the nations, right?
Yeah.
Because what they're learning from us when they get older, even at such a young age, now they get to do that.
Yeah.
Speak of Christ,
Yeah.
into other people's lives and all that. But it's a beautiful thing, and it's still a story that's still growing, right?
Yeah.
There's different chapters, but again, going back to the legacy, it's like we know that we're not here forever. We're here for a certain amount of time, right?
Yeah.
What are we going to do with that time? How are we being stewards of what's given to us, right?
Yeah.
And in this case, family, right? Family, each other, and our audience may or may not know, but my wife and I, we don't have our own kids, right?
Yeah.
That's something that we're still believing for. We've been married 13 years, still no kids, but yet we're still hopeful, right? Because we know of the promises of God. We know the words have been spoken over us.
Yeah.
We're holding on to those things. So we know that we have a legacy, right, that's going to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
But we still have to do our part in obedience and in submission.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And I think going back to the original, right, where I think there's such an attack against families because of that same thing. That there's such it shapes generations, it shapes culture, it shapes nations. And so with that, I also know that there's another side of the coin where men do enter into these covenants, but they don't treat them as holy, right? And so then there's the title and there's the position, but there's not stepping into the role. And so for men that are in that situation and versus the men that are, stewarding their families correctly, as you say, like, what do you think like constitutes that, right? Or like, because I think it does go against the original design of a man, where they deny their role of protector and provider. So I guess the actual question is, what does being a godly protector and a godly provider look like? And with this one, I'll start with Toddy.
So for me, that means making sure that we're providing financially, that there's a roof over our heads, over my wife's heads, over my family's head, and that there's food on the table.
That's good.
All right. Spiritually, be in church, be under the leadership of somebody like A-Rob or Rion.
There you go.
Make sure your family's getting fed, physically and spiritually.
That's so good, because I think, especially in America, right, it seems like the woman has taken that role of leading the family into the church, when in reality, if you look at it from a biblical standpoint, it's quite the opposite. And so, A-Rob, I know you can write a book about this. So tell us, what's going on in your head right now?
There's a million things running around in my head. It's just it's kind of a funny situation that we have in our present culture, and even in many churches, where in America, typically any given church in America is 70% women, only 30% men.
Yeah.
That tells me that for them, I'm not going to say completely across the board, because there's that 30%,
right,
and here's some strong men right here. That tells me that many of the so-called men in those other families are not really men. Because manhood is not defined just because I'm a male. Manhood is defined by what I do for the people that's entrusted to me, my wife first, and my kids, and then others that are entrusted to me. If I am that leader, that provider, that protector, that's what makes a man.
Yeah.
Not just being a male of a certain age. So there's a lot of males in our culture and society. There's a lot of males in the church. But unfortunately, it's like we talked about before, many instructors, few fathers.
Right.
So that means there's a lot of males, really, truly few true men that can be relied upon. And I'm passionate about that because I've seen such a failure in our culture, society, and thus the church.
Yeah.
Where, again, you have a lot of males, but not a lot of men. I can tell you story after story after story, but some, even to the point where a lot of the so-called men don't even want to get a job. Their wives work. They stay at home. And sometimes if it works out for whatever reason, whatever. But when it becomes your drive or your goal in life as a man to take the position of a woman, how could we call that male truly a man?
Right.
You know, the Bible even says that if a man, doesn't say woman, but if a man does not provide for his family, he's worse than an unbeliever. That's what the Bible says.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Worse than an unbeliever. So what it looks like is the male among us just getting up and taking care of business, taking care of his business, taking care of his wife, taking care of his family, like Todd said, putting a roof over their head, protecting them. I believe every man should one way or another be able to physically protect his family as well.
Yeah.
Whether that means keeping a weapon in the house or going and taking some, jujitsu class or something. He's got to be able to physically protect them, spiritually cover and protect them, feed them, house them, clothe them. You say, well, that's a lot of responsibility. Well, that's what men do.
Yeah.
That's what men do.
So you've been designed to do.
Yeah.
I was going to add too, he just hit on it about putting a roof over their head. They need to have a secure home, a safe home, a safe place. They need to feel secure. The wife needs to feel secure. The kids need to feel secure. So, again, A-Rob just hit on that, but that's a big part of it.
Sorry, go ahead.
And I think so there's a safe in the sense of, okay, this structure is sound and, the roof's not going to fall on my head, right? Yeah. There's a safe in the sense of, the spiritual covering. So obviously praying for them and knowing that, okay, I got you, we're going to do this as a family. We got you. Okay. Then there's the added on aspect of it of, the food and all that stuff. That's all great. But I think also to be a protector and provider, we have to be able to provide an environment for them to flourish in their callings and let them be an impact in the world as well. Yeah. Because it's when, if you make it black or white, it could sound like, okay, I got to provide a house, I got to provide money for food, I got to provide money for clothes. Okay, now you guys stay in the house. As long as you're here and safe, I'm doing my job. Okay, I mean, you're keeping them alive, but there's no life there. Yeah. There's a heartbeat, but there's no life. It's maintained. So, kind of, you guys see everything that Denise is doing on In the Vine, and you see, she's got Mommy Friend and doing all these activities, and she gets involved in the politics, and, my daughters are over there, speaking to everybody and worshiping up here, and, they're doing great things, and I believe it's because I've been able to provide that environment for them to thrive. I'm not telling them what to do. I'm not telling Denise, hey, you got to go volunteer here. You got to go, get on this board. You got to go start your own business. No, like, those are all things that she generally just started on her own because I was able to provide that area of comfort of like, okay, you don't have to financially provide for our family. If you want to, and it happens, great, cool. That's a bonus, extra money for your nails if you want. But these are all things that just, in her heart, she finds fascinating. She gets excitement out of, it's fulfilling to her. So I'm able to provide the time. She doesn't have to go work a 9 to 5. She doesn't have to go do these things. She can work on the things that fills her heart's desire. Yeah. And that brings me satisfaction. Once she's happy, then the kids feel it as well because they can assess whether mom's having a bad day, dad's having a bad day. So if she's thriving in her arena, the kids see that and they're going to want to thrive in their arenas. Yeah. Each of my daughters have a different aspect of life and a different character. And you see it, Amalia's very artistic and very loving and very friendly. Emma's very straightforward and detail-oriented, and that spills out in their life. And they're all growing in their arenas because mom at home has been able to establish we're not here just to do what dad says. Obviously, they listen to me. They listen to my guidance, but they have the freedom to develop into what they're called to be in this world, and they know that I'm going to support them I'm gonna be there, helping them get to the final level
Yeah.
they want to get to. I know, but so it's also providing that safe environment for them to grow and thrive into what they're called to be.
Yeah, that's so good. Anybody else?
If I can piggyback on that, what Mike said, the man should be the main primary provider for the home. I mean, it's okay if the wife wants to work, if she's able to work, and that's her choice. My wife worked when we first got married for a couple of years. When we started having kids, one of her dreams was to be a homemaker, a mom. And when we started having kids, she opted to homeschool the mom. So she was able to stay home and be with her kids. That was her dream, and she fulfilled that. So I felt it was my role to make sure that I could provide that she could stay home.
Yeah.
If she chose to. And that's the way it worked out.
Yeah, I agree.
If I can interject just a little bit there, because it sounds almost like the man is just the piggy bank, and the wife can just like ching and get whatever she wants, but it doesn't quite really work that way. And not just our own example, because we similar like Todd. When we got married, my wife did work, and when she got pregnant, she wanted to stay at home, and she was at home for more than 9 years at home, being at home, homeschooling, doing everything. And last year she felt like she wanted to go back to work, and I said, well, if you want to go, go. So it's not about work or not work, but there is a kind of like a little catch-22 to this, because if you go to Proverbs 31 as a woman, we speak about men now, but as women, what makes a great man is a great wife. And that woman of Proverbs 31, I have never met before. Let's just be honest. Plus, if you read who is writing it, it is the mom, the mother-in-law. The mother-in-law is writing to the king. This is the type of wife you should have, you know. She must buy a business. She must have slaves. She must, work till midnight sewing clothes. It's like there ain't such a wife. Okay. But the idealism behind it, that does exist. And for me as a man, I'm just speaking purely as a carnal, testosterone-driven individual. If you respect me, it's easy to love you. Like, easy. Like, so easy. It's not even work. But, if you cause conflict, then it's a strain to love you. You understand? And so it's a two-way streak in becoming the man, and everybody's got a testimony here, and behind the testimony is, this is the great man, but hey, there's the great wife that stayed in your mom's garage with you, that worked through the hours when there was no money, and so the testimony can go and go and go. So the design, just the God design. God made, like Todd said, God designed it. Man be the head, wife follow. That doesn't make her the slave.
Right.
But once we implement it, God will bless it accordingly. And the tricky part of it all is, especially for our manly egos, at the end of the day, God is our provider. Yes, I am a provider, but God is my provider. So, I mean, I'm just part of the vessel, part of the system. I'm just working the system. And if you do it the right way, like getting married and then have kids, the system is just more wax. It's easier, it flows better. So, just so that there's no confusion, I don't think the man should be only there to, open his checkbook and hand things out. That will be unbalanced. It will create a different type of culture.
Well, I actually agree with that, because and I know it intimately, right? Because the Hispanic culture is what I was brought up in and all that, and so I see it constantly, where the man thinks that they're in that role because they're providing, but they're not showing up. And so it does create such a brokenness in the family, because it's just the shell of a man. And so it's true, if a woman were to go into a marriage just expecting the providing and the protection without the respect, without the honor, without the being the woman, right, that the mother-in-law in Proverbs 31 was describing, then it creates such an imbalance in the household, where again the kids are being brought up in such a faulty foundation. Any of you men would like to add into that?
Well, just going back to design, I just wanted to bring out, because I know Mike was bringing up, you know, what we were designing, how we were wired. When God created man, He didn't say, "Okay, I'm done. It's good." It wasn't until He created woman.
Yeah.
Well, now, you know, now He's satisfied. Now it's a
Yeah.
good thing, right? And I see a woman as, like, going to what Apostle Rion was saying about respect. A man wants respect from his wife. A woman wants security, right? And then you see that as, like, man is created to protect the whole woman, spiritually, emotionally, physically, in those areas, right? And the woman is created to protect our heart. You kind of see it in, that's why, but you kind of get a sense of it because she came from the rib, right? Which the rib protects our hearts, our organs, right? Up here. So you can see it in that sense that the woman is designed to protect our heart. The way she protects our heart is by giving us honor, by respecting us, right?
Yeah.
So that, in that sense, protecting her in those three things, I think that's important: spiritually, emotionally, and physically.
Yeah.
To be a protector, and you know what? It's a good thing. Like, physically, like, it's a good thing. Like, God created man to be physically bigger.
Yeah.
We're able to withstand, like, you know, physical things, right? Emotionally, it gets a little trickier, but that goes back to identity, right?
Yeah.
Knowing who we are, right?
Yes.
Knowing who we are in Christ, and then that establishes a foundation,
Yeah.
right? And then just spiritually is covering her in prayer, right? But also in agreeing with her in her prayers.
Yeah.
What is she desiring, or what is God speaking to her? And one of the things I learned when I first got married was how selfish I was, right?
That's always what I hear.
Yeah, and it's a constant growing, because just to be honest, just recently, I had an error, not a mistake, not a sinful thing, but just an error, right? And it was a miscommunication, and my wife told me, like, "Hey, in that area you were selfish," and I'm like, "Whoa, I'm way beyond that.
Yeah.
I'm no longer selfish, right? I'm good in that area, right, God?" And it's like, no, like, but she was telling me out of a place of love, right? Because she respects me. She doesn't want me going about life thinking that I'm right in this area.
Yeah.
But who better to let you know than the person that you're doing life with, right?
Right.
The one you chose to be your wife. So, I mean, that's a beautiful thing. But I think it's really important for us to protect the whole woman, the desires, right? The spiritually, physically, and just remember that God handed us this beautiful woman, right? Beautiful, like brand new, right? Okay, so we're not out to return her back to God the way we received her. We have to return her back the way better, 10 times better, right? According to God's will, what does God have for her? That's how we're supposed to be going to what Mike was saying, is preparing, is allowing her to become who she's called to be, right? Designed to be, right? So she can flourish. So we have to remember that there's going to be a time when our day is up, we're going to be judged. We're going to be judged on how we treated our wives, right? How we respected them, how we protected them.
Which is so good, because in today's day and age, there's such a competition for some reason between men and women, which is like it's why we have this whole woke ideology, feminism, and all this nonsense, because it's like women and men, there's an overstepping into the roles, as A-Rob was saying, right? Where it's just like, well, the man wants to be the one at home and the woman wants to go out and earn a thing, which, I mean, again, like, it can work in some cases, but what's in God's design is what's blessed, right? And then the other thing, it's what we're constantly hearing in this church. If you go outside of God's will to get something, then you're going to have to stay out of His will to maintain it. And so obviously we know that there's nothing maintainable outside of the will of God. And so it's just like, stepping out of the ecosystem or the echo chamber and just realizing, wait a minute, like, what is God saying about this? What is God saying about, and why is there such an attack on the family? Why doesn't society want me to get married? Why does society want me to hate men, or vice versa? Then you really start realizing, okay, well, if this is the norm that society is trying to make, then there's clearly a lie somewhere in there, because I haven't seen so many women, like, I just had a conversation with like a woman that was like over 50, I think. I'm so sorry if she ever hears this and you're not 50. I'm so sorry. And she was like, yeah, like, I'm still single. And she's like, it's so hard and blah. And I was like, wow, like, I'm so sorry, because you could see the heartbreak there, right? But it's just like, going back to what A-Rob said, where it's like, you've become this solid person on your own. So I only met her like for 5 minutes, and I can already see how there's a struggle with submitting to somebody, right? Submitting to somebody and aligning two lives together, because everybody always wants to have a voice. But in a marriage, there's not two voices, it's one unity, right? And so it's crazy to me. So Andre, tell us, talk to us. What do you have to say about this?
Yeah, no, I really loved what everyone said about the question, being a protector and a provider. If you want more details, Ephesians 5, Colossians 3 talks a lot about man and wife dynamic, so you could check that out. I was more thinking about why men aren't stepping into this role, going back to A-Rob's statistic of 30%, right? So 70% of the women are in church. And just thinking back to when I wasn't saved, I was distracted in sports. So I truly believe men are so distracted in the wrong things. And I want to kind of preface this. I'm not saying if you play sports it's sinful, or if you go shoot guns, or if you go off-roading, but it becomes a problem when you know statistics about all these teams but you don't know the Word of God. It's a problem when you're always following your favorite celebrities and you know everything that they're doing and where they're traveling, but you haven't memorized like a psalm that has 6 verses, for example, or you're living that out. So I personally feel in America we're so spoiled and we're just so distracted. I recently heard someone at work say along these lines that the most divisive thing in this country is not politics, it's sports. And there was a study behind this, and I was kind of mind blown because I really thought it was politics, given the the election cycle and how things have been since 2016, the last 8 years, right? So it's really just about men being distracted, and that's the enemy will lead you astray into those passions and give you, God will give you up to that, like Romans 1 talks about. But if you're distracted, you're not going to be an effective man of God. You're not going to cultivate all these things these amazing men are saying about walking in purpose and complimenting your wife, and your wife stepping into their callings. And I agree the comment about finances, right? It's beyond that, because God is our provider. We're just a channel, and that stuff all follows us. So even if you put, like, as a man, a young man, I need to have the right amount of money, like $50K prior to getting married. Well, money's become your idol. Yeah. And you're not living in idolatry. And because you're trying to do it in your own thoughts and processes instead of trusting on God. And, just what I've seen in my own life, it's followed me because of being in the will of God is important. And also, we won't touch on it too much, but the prophetic voice of God is so important. Like, I take that so serious in my life, and that's what's really helped being a protector and a provider just 4 years into my marriage. And I feel like I've done a really good job at that. And there's a lot of areas, going back to what you said about selfishness, that still need work day in and day out. But I just wanted to touch on the distraction part, the other side of it. Really good. Why I think men aren't stepping into that is we're way too distracted. We don't want to spend time in the Word, and that's what's causing a lot of the disunity in society just falling apart, because we're not in the roles that God has called us to walk in.
Yeah, if I can interject also again a little bit there, I think as far as from my point of view, look, I come from the South, the real South. And I mean, I'm looking at you guys in America a little bit objectively from an outside view, but at the end of the day, man is man, our primal instinct stays the same. Yeah. And there is something about being a guy that is exceptionally visual. Like if I read the menu, I'm not reading the lettuce, tomato. I'm checking out the picture, and then I want that picture, and then they ask, how do you want it? And I say, just like the picture. And again, when we choose our wives, we didn't, read a lot of things. We were checking the picture.
Amen.
Amen. Hallelujah. I'll take the honest amen. Amen. So as far as call it this delinquent generation, I mean, it's been coming for a while now, and there is a great place of visualization. What do we allow our boys to see? The past few years when I've been in the States, I've been very vocal against the narrative of toxic masculinity that they've been vomiting, actually. And then they want to take a little boy and measure him to a little girl. Listen, a boy is wired completely different from a woman. They can't sit still. almost like according to age, the amount of years they're old, that's how long they can sit still. If they're 5, it's 5 minutes, okay. And if you can hold them 5 minutes, it's fine.
Yeah.
So like with us, I mean, we did the homeschooling route, but my son Nathan jumped in the pickup truck and we went out on the farm. And when we'd come back later for lunchtime, you know, he will see his mommy and maybe do a little bit of schooling work. But I mean, we still finish in time, but he kind of like visually is with me most of the time. Now he picked up some bad habits already, so he likes like first-person shooter games and all those things, you know, which is good to have. But to fix this thing will be again like your previous conversation you had on the other post. Is having the father-son relationship being restored in a church level, because the world won't give it to you, because I'm talking now specifically of boys, okay? Now they send them to school and all your kindergarten teachers are a bunch of girls.
Yes.
Okay? That boy gets a visual imprint of this is how I should be. So he never gets a masculine exposure except for PE.
That's good. Yeah.
All right. Now they're all growing up, and the only outlet of being a man is sport.
Yeah.
True.
Okay.
So good.
And that's why we've got this whole generation of sport, because it's the only place here is allowed to be a man.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to be a man in classroom. You're not allowed to bully the guy next to you or shoot somebody with a pea shooter or something like that. All the good stuff that should happen, or finish the fight with the bully.
Yeah.
You know, and now we want to blame a whole generation that has been raised up. I don't want to say schooling is wrong per se, because I mean we need to be schooled, but we have to revisit the original design. You know, yes, mom should teach, and my wife has got a lot of grace when it comes to that. But there's certain aspects where you need the dad, and that dad will show you how to become a man, and being the man. Like I had many faults growing up into my marriage as well, because I mean, my dad, my biological dad, is exceptionally masculine. You know, I mean, he worked on the railway. I mean, that guy was tough as nails. I mean, he could, you know, he had like hands like vice grips. I mean, they worked physically, labor work. And so we picked up the trade of, if you want to do something, work for it. But I never saw him kiss my mom. I didn't know how it worked. So Hollywood showed me, you know, and Hollywood, there's nothing holy about Hollywood, you know, and again, that's why, like, I appreciate with A-Rob here as the apostle of the house, bringing back men like you guys, how to become a man, and guess what, we need to see it. Don't tell me, show me.
That's good. That's really good.
If I may interject, because Rian just actually said it, and this is what I was going to say, especially to young men, you need to remain teachable and remain humble.
Yes.
But when you talk about, like Andre said, distractions and the choice between staying home and watching a football game on a Sunday or getting your butt into church, you know, you need to get yourself under good leadership, and that's where I have to give A-Rob a high 5, a high 10.
Yeah.
You know, I've been under his leadership for quite some time, and, you know, you talk about toxic masculinity and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we're under some good teaching here, and I've learned a lot over the last a lot of years. And so I give him a lot of credit for teaching me also how to be a man, how to be a leader and stuff like that. And anyway, be teachable, stay humble, and get yourself under the right leadership.
That's so good. As much as we hate to interrupt this episode, we did run a little long, so we decided to split it into 2 parts. Make sure you tune in next Monday to hear the rest of this awesome episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, or we answered any of your questions, or you have a question you would like discussed in future episodes, let us know in the comments or share on social media at inthevine.connects. And be sure to hit subscribe so you won't miss out on the amazing content and guests we have lined up for you. To find out about our upcoming events and more, please visit our website at www.inthevine.org.